Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Alex here, and today we're going to be playing round four of the Magistral Argentina I, which is a league of 8 players with the top four Argentinian players against four of the invited players from various countries. So I'll be playing Oskar from Sweden today. So I think he is one of the top few players. Even at the World Othello Championship, he plays very well. So I'll be playing white today. So usually I like to think of black being as more of an offense kind of color in terms of the opening that you can decide, and white is something that is more defensive that you have to sort of respond to what opening that black sort of leads into. So let's see how this game goes. So as usual, I'll be talking through my thought process for each and every move just before I make the move, so that all of you who are watching can sort of just try to understand the basics and what kind of things that maybe a more advanced player would be looking at. So hopefully this will be a good game. Okay, so right now we're about to start the game. Good luck, Oscar. So he's playing black, and he's basically started with my favorite position, which can be confusing at times because if he plays e6, which is my preferred position, uh, it's gonna probably affect me somewhere down the line when I kind of confuse myself between colors. So I'm just gonna go with the safer perpendicular approach. He's gonna go with the tiger. I'm not gonna vary it here, the dragon at this point in time. Tiger dog might be an option. But let me just go with the standard book sequence just to get a feel of maybe his opening. So right now I have a choice to do Aubrey perhaps. This would be bird tiger. This is the usual tiger. Let's go with the usual one. So he's played a Stephenson opening. So right now I have the option to do Komov, or Stephenson, or Kong over here, or No Kong over here. So I'll go with No Kong. Recently I've been playing a little bit of No Kong, just trying to veer away from the usual Komov and just see what happens. So he's chosen to block off, basically form a block over here and abandon this disc for now. So I'll just take a quick slot in, a quiet move, flipping one disc in just one direction, just continue to regroup. Okay, so this particular opening is quite interesting. I first encountered it when I played against Song Yan, so it usually leads to unexpected positions, and if black plays it very well, it'll be extremely difficult to counter. So right now, because black has established f5, the next move that black might grab is actually f7, which basically gives him control over this diagonal axis over here, which would be the important centralizing axis. If I were to just jump into e3 right now, he would simply go to f7 and control this diagonal cut or this centralizing axis. So I have to establish this extend along to g4 just to retain that access across. So right now he's cut through. So right now, even if I go for e3 and if he goes for f7, I'll still be able to cut back. So right now, e3 might be an option. Alternatively, I could consider taking f7 myself. So if I do take f7, he will regroup to f3. I would say that f3 is the safer approach to just centralize right now. So let's go with f3. And basically black goes to c7 very quickly, so he definitely knows this book very well. I'm not very familiar with this book, but I'll just have to try to derive the moves myself. So I could probably play f7 as well right now. But f7 would basically give him two tempos to the top, f2 and followed by f3 in the future. Another option is to jump out over here at b5 to basically form a point disc and just point back to d7. Another alternative would be to just go for d2, which cuts right in the center, and then work from there. So this possesses an inherent danger if he probably continues with f7 and I'll have to cut back. Or actually, if he goes to d7, it might be defensive and he's occupying the center. So right now I think I'm a bit more inclined to go to f7 to just form a defensive position. Even if he does go for both f2 and f3, it could still rotate along. Another alternative I could consider is h6 over here, but if he goes to h5, it would badly poison my h4. So I think I'm just going to go with f7 as a defensive maneuver and just wait for him to respond. He's jumped quickly into d7. So clearly he knows the opening very well, which could be a good and bad thing. I mean, if he's responding so fast, it means he's still in book. So this move might have not been that bad, I guess. So right now, if I were to play a quiet move to c8, he would immediately respond to e8 and have one additional tempo to f8. That is something that I would like to avoid as much as possible. Another way I could do is to make a cut to b6, control this diagonal across and control this mini diagonal, which can be probably relatively quite bold a move, which I probably want to avoid and tone down right now. Because if he goes for f8 in the future, then I'll be able to actually get the two consecutive moves to d8 followed by c8. So right now, I might actually prefer to interact with the disc on the right and just wait for something, wait for him to cut out to the right. So if I were to interact with the disc on the right, I have four options. So h4, 5, 6, and g6. So I think h4 is not too great because it forms a very weird shape to the right. Usually h6 is the case whereby if white goes here, black jumps in. White can maybe cut through here to a quiet move. That is potentially possible. So I'm going to go ahead with the unorthodox h5 over here. Mainly because I'm trying to hope that he jumps right in. But if he doesn't and goes to the top, then potentially when he creeps 1, 2 to f2, f3, and in the future maybe g3, I would have an opportunity to just extend across, maybe form a pair. I'm not too sure if that will work out, to be honest, but I'll just give it a shot. Right now he's established e3 disc, so right now I'm more or less safe to actually proceed towards c8 without having the fear of him taking a quiet move here. So we'll anticipate a sort of like a rotation, c8, and basically he might jump in over here to f3. I'll be able to cut out to b6 being a quiet move since he's already cut a diagonal direction towards f2. Okay, let's go with c8. So one danger is probably him going immediately to g6. So I'm not too sure how that would play out, but I think the anticipated move from him, alright, he moved quickly to f3. So that is basically according to what I anticipated, I guess. So right now, the sensible move would be to just jump into b6, get b6 as a point disc to regroup here. So I think a reasonable move for him right here is to just play a poison move, maybe to e8 over here, basically creating a fork, giving me two options or more. So that could actually force some errors on my part. Alternatively, he could go to the tail end of the move that I just played and just go to g6 perhaps. So those are options as well. I think he could also go to g3, which is a fairly quiet move, but it may be a mistake to ignore the bottom as b6 is forming like a point move and attempting to go into d8 for the regroup maneuver. So far in the opening, Oscar has played very quickly, so pretty sure that he knows some of these openings very well. So this could be a challenge, but the fact that he's slowing down might be a good sign that I might have some opportunity. I believe that Black is, or Oscar is definitely leading over here by a little bit. Maybe 4 to 6 this, I'm guessing. I don't know. So if I were him, I think e8 would be probably one of my top choices. Okay, so he does do e8. So right now, one of my top choice would be to either consider b5, which he might just go here and then feed me the edge, which is not too great for myself if he continues right on here. So it probably makes more sense for me to immediately feed the edge off and then go for that maneuver to the left. Alternatively, I could also go for this on the tail end of it, but right now the action or the active zone, I like to call, is actually to the bottom. So I have to respond somehow over here. It doesn't make sense to just leave it alone, so I'll feed off the unbalanced edge right now. Seems like I'm in a little bit of trouble right now. Okay, so surprisingly, he chooses to take the edge pretty quickly. So right now, his next move, which is b5, is going to be a good one. No way I can prevent it. Poisoning it, not likely. So I'll probably just grab the move at this point in time. Poisoning the move would probably mean b3, which is probably not a good option since he has b4 to respond to. At this point in time, I feel like kind of being forced. And if I play to b5, he has a quiet a5 to respond. Let's go with the defensive b5 first. And right now he has a quiet move to g3 as well. So maybe h5 might have been a huge problem. So I don't think he's going to go b4 and give me a3 and potentially b3 in the future, 2 temples. So it's more likely that he goes for either g3 or a5, one of those moves. g3 seems to be a very strong move for him. Okay, he goes for a5. Maybe he would like to set up the left first before he goes to the right, since there is no hurry for him to capture the right. So I'm gonna go ahead with this poison edge. I think if I were to go here, he would just play a quiet move over here. If I were to take this, he would still play the same quiet move over here. So it wouldn't make sense to respond to those areas. The top moves looks pretty much poison. My only choice quickly is a6. So I think I'm being pretty much forced right now. This game probably seems a little too far ahead for Black right now. Black should be leading comfortably. Also, in terms of time, he's probably doing very well as well. Okay, I wasn't really expecting him to take a7, but right now a7 looks very strong because he has a follow-up move to a4, and that essentially takes away quite a lot of tempo for me. It's going to be a huge problem for me in the future. So if I take b4 right now, he basically takes 3 moves to a4 and a3, so I have to leave a gap and play b3 and basically wait for him to maybe play a3 and I'll go in and he jumps in. So looking at his style, it seems like Oscar is somebody who plays a very extreme edge play kind of game. In fact, it feels like a very bold style. So that is quite surprising, but yet very effective. So I think he's doing very well right now. It's almost going to be a struggle. It's a bit of a tug of war. He's trying to make me run out of moves, and at the same time, this kind of style is a bit of like a double-edged sword. So if I do somehow manage to survive the offense of him trying to wipe out all my moves, then I would probably be able to find some way to at least secure maybe sacrificing a corner to the top left and then basically trying to wedge down and attack that unbalanced edge. So hopefully I can still find one or two moves there. Okay, so he takes a4, which is kind of surprising, which I don't really have an option right now because I have to jump into b4. So I guess I don't have an option. I'll just jump quickly into b4. Just under 8 minutes left for me. I'm thinking he might even consider... No, I don't think he would take that. It's probably too risky for him. He wouldn't be able to establish excess back, even though there is a potential for multiple tempo over here. So he's probably going to go with g3 over here, and I would then respond with c2 to establish some solid discs over here, and also because I don't have access to h2. Okay, so surprisingly he just chooses to close off to the left, which basically means I can't take f1 because it basically gives him a quiet move consecutively to f8 and g8. That will be way too much. I wouldn't be able to chase up that gap. So right now it's more about just trying to form up the edge to the top and feeding him off the top left corner and just trying to wedge and come back. Since this is like a double-edged sword shape, if I manage to get in, I'll be able to sweep a few more tempo. So right now the top picks should be e2 to just sort of hang on to some moves. d2 seems way too loud. If he jumps in over here to c2, I wouldn't have a very nice move to follow up. If I were to jump into c2 first, if he takes this, I'll be able to jump in. He goes here. I'll probably squeeze in over here. So it's going to be between c2 and e2, I guess. So usually a strong edge to the left, and if you're approaching it, it somehow usually is better to actually just approach it first. So between c2 and e2, I would actually slightly prefer c2 for that general guidance or experience. But if I were to play c2 and he jumps in almost immediately to d1, that could potentially be a problem for me. Would it? c2, d1, and then if I jump in over here, I might actually still have one more move to play. Okay, I'll go ahead with e2 first. Kind of feel like c2 seems to be too risky. So the fact that I'm talking about feeling right now instead of making logical thinking means that I'm somewhat pushed into a corner. Usually if your opponent is playing an extreme type of edge play, it does get a little scary just trying to hang on to that crucial one or two moves. It's going to be a bit of like a tug of war. So really very difficult for probably both of us. So would he be going to maybe d2 over here? Okay, so he does take d2 to wrap up to the top left, still trying to force me to probably remove f2 disc so that he can go for that consecutive tempo, f8, g8. So right now it's getting a bit tough. If I were to just pop right over to c2, he takes a chip to d1, I would have a little bit of problem there in terms of tempo, and just exchange over to maybe to the left. Not too ideal for me. So I have to go for that point. And usually when there is this L-shaped kind of square situation, if you want to capture the edge, or if you're going to save some moves, usually the point move might be more useful. So I'm just going to that point move quickly by c1. So over here, the concern is I'll probably be forced soon to actually give up the edge to the top, or at the same time I need to be very, very careful about this particular disc. I cannot be forced to remove it because if I am, I would immediately give up the bottom free two moves, and that would probably be game over for me. So right now, not exactly sure what is he gonna do. So far, I haven't really been successful in predicting all of his moves, so it's really very challenging because usually when you have a certain level of anticipation for your opponent's moves, you are able to plan ahead. But if you can't predict what your opponent is gonna do, it's really very difficult to try to come up with a game plan. At least not in anticipation. So I'm thinking he might go D1 to sort of hope that I go in here and he slots in over here. I wouldn't have much of a choice. But if he goes to D1, I'll have to play C2 over here. Takes the edge, I jump in, feed off the unbalanced edge and creep in. And if he takes this, I think I'm pretty much dead. I don't think I have much of an option right now. I think he might be in control of this one. Okay, so maybe I'll feed off C2, and if he does go in here, I'll be able to touch and attack the edge if I take G1 after he takes B2. So should he choose to take B2 because of this entire control row, it's almost like a reverse counter to being swindled, because if I remove the F2 disc, I get swindled over here for 2 consecutive tempo, but yet on the flip side, if he plays B1 right now, I'll be able to take G1, and if he takes F8 in response, I'll just threaten the corner, almost like a double layer attack on the corner to A1. So if I have that, I'll be able to capture the corner to the top left and come down to the bottom. Then him gaining tempo to the bottom would then be rendered useless, I guess. So that might be a lucky find for me right now, because I was actually anticipating for him to go to B1, and I might just go to E1, and I might just lose if I would just go for B1, E1, F1, and then B2 over here, and he basically finishes me off with G3. But right now, given that if he plays to B1, I'll be able to... Okay, so he doesn't. He probably realizes the same thing as well. So he knows he cannot play that, and he's forced to play G3 right now. I'm perfectly fine with just going immediately to the X square now, I guess, because I would have moves to play out to the left. Yeah, I basically don't have a choice. I have to play the X square, and even if I lose parity to the top left, I still get the wedge. So if he takes the corner, I'll still get this A2 wedge and 2 tempos to the bottom left. I think that's totally worth it, so that's fine. But right now it's just all about the moves to the right, to the bottom right. How is he going to close off? I think the diagonal control that I've established is fairly strong, so I'm not too concerned. So yeah, I think right now it seems like it was a lucky getaway by me. I think I should have control of the game right now. So that's usually the case when the game gets a bit crazy and edge play is the focus. He could have some hidden moves over here that could involve sweeping my critical excesses away. But I think right now it's a bit difficult for him to actually find anything good. Hopefully that is fine for me. If he goes to H3, I'll go to H4. He'll just wrap up to H6 perhaps. Just trend down to G6 and he takes H7. I'll still continue with the diagonal control. I lose parity to maybe the top left and also the bottom right, but I think in overall perspective I'm fine. He might try something like H6, but H6 basically I will respond with H4, and he goes to H3 is pretty much more or less the same as the earlier sequence. So I'm thinking whether he might actually consider to play F8 over here to sort of just remove the excess over here. I felt like I somehow got away in the mid game, I think. So right now he's just under 6 minutes for him, and for me just 4.5 minutes left. I think at least the investment that I made in the opening to mid game might be slightly paying off here with that lucky find of that potential reverse swindle. So right now, let's see. Alternatively, he could consider h4 to sweep to the edge to try to beg a response. Okay, he doesn't take that. So essentially, he takes this and establishes f6, which is pointing towards the corner to a1. So I could choose to take a quiet move over here and ignore his approach, let him have it. Or I could just take a defensive move over here, which I think he doesn't have a good response to. So I guess I'm gonna hold out one more move, just play out one more move, control, extend the diagonal control, and then if he goes for h4, I wouldn't be able to defend that anymore, but I can just jump in over here, given that this is a 5 disc corner, parity should be mine, at least for this region. And if he goes to the corner, I take a2, I lose parity, but I still get 2 tempos below, so it's very worth it for me. So if he does go to h3, I'll just go to h4. He can't go h6 because he gives up the corner immediately. So right now, if he just jumps into g6, it wouldn't really make sense, I guess. I would still be able to play a simple defensive move to h4. So right now, 3.5 minutes for him. I think, yeah, it's basically a very difficult position for him. He can't really move out of this one that easily. So I guess if I were him, I'll be thinking about probably just trying to maximize the discs as much as possible. How about maybe h3, h4, and then he goes to g6. Just coming up to about 2.5 minutes left for him. Okay, so he's selected to go to h4. So this means that he is going to attack a1 corner eventually. So essentially, h6 is poison. I wouldn't want to create a move for him to e1. It wouldn't make sense, and therefore I would have to just jump into the simple g6. If I go to g6, I take this, he grabs that. I think that's still fine. Okay, let's go to for g6 then. So over here is a 4 square region. I still have parity overall. There is no swindle, I hope. So right now, if he takes the corner, I'll jump in to a2. Yeah, I think it should be favorable for me. Considering the top right is a 7 square region that he cannot access, I would have exclusive access to that and therefore regain parity, perhaps. But he would have both the top left and the bottom right corner, which means that he has, supporting fire to both the top left to the top right direction, and also the bottom right to the top right direction. So let's see how that goes. Okay, he just takes the corner, jump right into a2. So right now it's a little bit more tricky, but I don't think there is any change in the moves that I need. The only thing that I might consider here is to play h3 first, let him go for the corner. Maybe grab this. He exchanges tempo, which is possible. Alternatively, if I take the corner here and he goes down, I'll jump in here. And jumps in, I'll be forced to slot in. Okay, I'll grab the corner first. I think either way is fine, but potentially, okay, I'll grab this. He's probably gonna go to h6 to force me to respond here. And if I don't, and I play somewhere else, he would be able to take h7. So that's like 2 consecutive tempos. If he takes h7, I'll be able to choose h3. Okay. So right now I can choose h3. In response, he's forced to play to the top. I would probably have a nice finish in terms of parity. He's probably going to play the x square, form a dilemma for me. Okay, so he doesn't play the x square, which is kind of surprising. I'll just grab the corner. He basically gives me parity. And then I'll sweep from here so that I can get some disc to the left. And good game. Okay, good game, Oscar. Thanks. I really feel that I got away lucky here. Even though the score doesn't do the game justice for sure. I think it was a very closely contested game right from the get-go, and it was very difficult for me. So, good game. Thank you everyone for joining this, and I hope to see you in the next one.